The autopsy of Jeffrey Epstein's body was completed last weekend on Sunday, just one day after he was found hanging in his cell at the Metropolitan Correction Center in Manhattan. But the results of the autopsy were inconclusive, and the medical examiner listed the cause of death as pending. So that's all the information we had for nearly a week following Epstein's death, until the Washington Post published a new revelation about the autopsy this morning, now confirmed by NBC News, that, quote, among the broken bones in Epstein's neck was the hyoid bone. The Post explains, quote, such breaks can occur in those who hang themselves, particularly if they are older, but they're more common in victims of homicide by strangulation, according to experts. The New York City chief medical examiner responded in a statement saying, quote, in all forensic investigations, all information must be synthesized to determine the cause and manner of death. Everything must be consistent. No single finding can be evaluated in a vacuum. Joining me now is one of the reporters who broke that story, Carol Leonnig, an investigative reporter for the Washington Post and an MSNBC contributor. Carol, I know nothing about medicine or biology or, all this stuff, but the hyoid bone is sort of somewhere around the Adam's apple. It's a very small bone. And tell me about what this finding means. In some percentage of cases when it's broken, it'll happen because of a suicide. In some cases, because of a strangulation. Tell me a little about this.
So I wasn't an expert in this either. I'm the beneficiary of a bunch of forensic pathologists who've lent their time to school us at the Post about what this means. Most studies find that it's unusual, atypical for the hyoid bone in men right above the Adam's apple to break during a suicide by hanging. It's usually associated with homicidal strangulation. Huh. And some of those medical examiners who've been consulting with us about this have warned me that the New York chief medical examiner in this case likely ruled that this death of Epstein was pending, or the cause of death, rather, was pending, because that bone sticks out as a sort of sore thumb in your facts, in your case. And she wants to possibly rule out any other possibility of homicide. For example, there are other indicia that would recommend that this is suicide, such as if he committed suicide, there would be no scratching at the neck, no skin of his own in his fingernails. There would be no defensive wounds that he incurred himself. There would be a kind of furrowing around his neck from the strangulation. There are other indicia that would say he committed suicide. It's not impossible that he broke this bone while trying to commit suicide. It's just not typical, and that's why it stands out. There was one examiner who called me today and said, I just think this is really rare. I don't see a hyoid bone breaking in a suicide by hanging almost ever. So it doesn't mean that we know for sure how he died. It just means it raises more worrisome questions about the cause.
Those questions wouldn't be there if he was checked on as much as he might have been, or we've got video. Now, the medical examiner has work to do as a medical examiner in a morgue. How does that fit in with the fact that there are others who have to interview guards and they have to check video and they have to see what's going on? I imagine in this particular instance, those two things need to come together to make a clear determination of what happened on Saturday.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you raised that, because there are many facts still outstanding, right? Videotape of the jail. We now know that no tapes were pointed directly into Jeff Epstein's cell. We know some tapes existed because the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons were able to determine that the staff who were on duty were asleep and didn't check on him for more than 3 hours during the middle of the night before he died, the very crucial hours before he died. So there is some video that's worth looking at. The death investigation will absolutely look at that. The pathologist is going to look for toxicology results. Was there anything in his system to suggest that he was actually killed by someone injecting him with something? I know that sounds nutty, but you've got to rule that out. The death investigation will also interview guards and inmates. Some of the guards are going to want lawyers and not answer questions, because it goes to the heart of, are you going to be able to keep your job after you explain what happened? There are a lot of unanswered questions, but the body itself gives a lot of clues. We only know at the Washington Post about this one, that that doesn't answer the question, but raises more.
This entire story, since the Miami Herald initially did that story last fall, has had more questions associated with it than answers from the beginning to the end. Carol, thank you for your great reporting on this. Carol Leonnig of The Washington Post.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.